Awesome. Great. Well, again, welcome everybody. If I've never spoken to you before, or if you're newer to Adobe or newer to the CSM team, my name is Jerry Silverman, and I'm a Senior Product Marketing Manager in the Creative Cloud for Enterprise Business Unit. I'm joined here in San Jose by my marketing coordinator, Sarah Halverson, who is here in the office, partner in crime with these Creative Jams. And if you don't know what I look like, this is my wonderful face. And you can tell that I'm pretty excited. These Creative Jams, particularly in Enterprise for this segment, are very near and dear to my heart. I've been working over the past, I want to say 18 months on bringing this project to fruition. And so I'm really excited to be on this call right now with you guys in particular, with your teams. And so just to give you guys a little bit of agenda, we're just going to go over what is a Creative Jam and what is this program that we've been working so hard to concretize over the last 18 months. What are the KPIs? How are we going to be measured, right? That's really important. I know how I'm going to be measured, and I know you guys have ideas, but I wanted to make it crystal clear. And then I wanted to get down to nominations and timelines. Many of you have reached out to me kind of in tandem with a whole bunch of nominations, and we have lots of nominations from last year when we were piloting. And so I wanted to talk about those nominations and talk about the timeline for everything. And then really the Q&A is the most important part, so let's not take too much time. So if you're not familiar with what a Creative Jam is, it's a program that's actually taken place over the last 4 years at Adobe. This is the first year that it's being offered to the commercial, government, and EDU sectors together as a cohesive enterprise program. And it consists of the following components. The first and arguably the most foundational would be an instructional bootcamp on the Adobe Creative Cloud, which would include the entire services platform, as you see Dave Weinberg here at Viacom in November of 2017, giving these creative professionals an overview, but also giving them an instructional bootcamp, right? What can you do with Creative Cloud for Enterprise in 2017, 2018? What are the services? What are the ancillary products? How does XD stock and all of those, and Spark and Character Animator, right? All the different things that we release at Max. What do those look like? How do they work? How are they going to make you more productive, efficient, and creative in your everyday job? The second part would be when the congregated students get together and participate in a design competition using those Creative Cloud skills that they just learned in the bootcamp to compete against one another in a themed, timed challenge, right? So this is a photo of the Adobe Government Symposium last year. This is actually a variety of different government agencies being represented in the challenge. We're not doing quite the same thing this year, but this is kind of a representation of what it looks like. And we superimposed our Creative Jam last year on top of the Adobe Symposium, which is a separate event series, kind of like Adobe Max. We're not seeking to superimpose Creative Jams over other Adobe events this year. But just to give you a look at what the competition looks like, what the Creative Jam also provides is an opportunity for one-to-one interaction with product management, product marketing, and product experts. So this is a shot from the Creative Jam that we did with the WPP agencies in Chicago and brought in Rob Generett, otherwise known as Robzilla, who you see here, giving students of the different WPP agencies a quick tutorial on how to use Adobe Draw, Adobe Sketch on the Apple iPad Pro as part of the competition. So we see a lot of opportunity in these Creative Jams for product marketing, product management, and real industry expertise to come to bear with your customers in a hands-on way. The fourth component would be considered the Luminary Speakers, and this is ancillary to the competition, and it's pointed at a larger, more broad enterprise audience. And so getting to the personas inside of your accounts who would be able to address not just the hardcore Adobe users, but the broader community who might be interested to come down, hear a Luminary speaker talk about best practices and their career arc when it comes to design or some other topic that's relevant to that enterprise. Takes a lot more networking than you might have to do for your average Adobe day. And so we can talk about a little bit about how to source those speakers, how to think about those speakers, and how to network inside of your customers. Another fun component, which is not a necessary, but it definitely adds a lot of texture to the event, is the availability of hands-on maker type activities. So this is a photo of an Adobe Capture Make It booth that we set up at Nike in Beaverton, Oregon last October, where anyone who was attending the talks could come up and draw a little knick-knack or doodad, capture it with Adobe Capture on their phone, and then burn it to one of those little 2-inch by 2-inch wood blocks using a laser etching device that Nike just happened to have on site. We also ran a hands-on silk screening workshop for t-shirts so people could walk away with their own customized event tee. We've done all kinds of other hands-on maker activities. These are not, again, absolutely required for a creative jam, but they add a nice kind of pop of creativity, of inspiration, and it gives the people who are not there to compete, but who are there for the Luminary speakers, another something to talk about Adobe with and a little takeaway for themselves. Another component of this, which is really critical, and maybe it gets done in the Adobe Day context, maybe it gets done at Adobe Max or in your community activities, is that idea of networking within the Adobe community at your organization. So some of the folks that we see in this photo are our Luminary speakers, some are the Adobe account and BU teams, and some of them are personas within our customer who we might not necessarily ordinarily have access to during the course of our interactions with them in the sales cycle or the customer success cycle, right? So we see Angela Snow over on the left-hand side. She's the VP of Design Community at Nike, who is not necessarily a title that we would have access to right away, but since we came in and were very bullish about doing this creative jam and exposing their designers to our tools and services, she got involved and was very instrumental. And it was great to kind of dig within the account to find that title. Another one, CJ Corey over there on the right-hand side, was somebody who runs their entire innovation and maker lab, which is called the Blue Ribbon Studio, which again, if we had just been interested in going into one division in Nike and doing an Adobe Day, we might not have had exposure to Angela and to CJ and to Ryan, who is also there, who really opened the door for us to succeed with our event. And the last component, and I realize it actually seems a lot more than you might have expected, but the brand storytelling that is available to us after we do a creative jam and during the creative jam process is really different than I think what you're going to see in your average Adobe Day with your customer. It's an event that customers like to blog about. They like to tell each other about and possibly even talk to the broader design community about. With Mattel, which we completed in April, we were able to parlay the activity with the Creative Jam into a post on the Adobe Creative Cloud blog, into a gallery on Adobe Behance, and also we sent around a recap of all the different activities in a Spark page. And so it's a really kind of dynamic way of telling the story of that brand, its interaction, its relationship with Adobe, and how it is digitally transforming into an experience business through use of Adobe's Creative Cloud. So again, that's a long-winded approach, and that's a lot of components, but if you want to boil it down to its essence, Creative Jam is a unique experience for our top customers that enables them to increase their value from Creative Cloud and their Adobe Enterprise relationship through product training, competition, and talks, right? So that's how you guys can pitch it if you don't want to walk through this whole long deck. And last year we were very fortunate to have a partnership with a select group of pilots, such as Viacom, Nike, WPP, Mattel, the government team, and POP, to go through and prove it out and get all of these case studies to make it happen. So, I want to say thank you, Sarah and I and the whole BU team want to say thank you to those of you who were able to participate and who contributed so much. We're looking for more this year. And not just are we looking for pilots, we're looking for an actual program now. So again, you'd probably notice that awareness, adoption, active use, right? It was the 3 A's, I like to call them, and I've kind of gone by that mantra. Awareness, of course, that we're looking to drive is of the awesomeness of the Creative Cloud and Adobe Stock, right? All the different platform awesomeness. Which will lead, the awareness leads to adoption of named user deployment with services, which leads to monthly active use of all the new tools, XD, stock, libraries, and everything else that we're looking to drive active usage of, right? So that's really the goal in a nutshell, the 3 A's. If you have to come back to the 3 A's, then that slide will do you well. So a lot of questions that I get are, how does it work? How does the teamwork proceed? And who's involved from Adobe, who's involved from the customer site, and why am I talking to the CSMs in particular? So this shot is from the Viacom Creative Jam we did in November. The CSM, portrayed here by your friendly neighborhood Matt, owns the overall relationship and manages it, and is basically the event co-owner with the rest of the folks here that are listed. So that's why I'm coming to you guys first, is because as the event co-owner and overall relationship manager, this event can really move the needle in the directions you want for the 3 A's with your customers. But equally, if not more important, is the customer champion who's going to drive the internal engagement inside of that account. They are going to help co-produce. They're going to drive attendance. There'll be a liaison with the venue and logistics and everyone else. So that's pictured here by Dave Leopold, who you might have seen on stage with Chris Kohler during the Worldwide Sales Kickoff, talking about, among other things, the great engagement that Viacom has had in their global entertainment group with our teams across ACS and the BU. Another extremely important component personnel-wise for the Creative Jam is portrayed here by your friendly neighborhood Dave, and that's the solutions consultant, right? That person will be the bootcamp instructor, a technical mentor, and also the on-site Creative Cloud expert for the competitors. And so that person really helps set the tone, and everybody who has been part of that, Patty Sokol, Dave Weinberg, Michael Murphy, who have helped out, have just done a fantastic job, and it's very much in their wheelhouse of the kind of things they like to do, I've found, and so I don't think it's too hard to get them to buy in. The Luminary Speakers, again, they're either local or subject matter expert thought leaders, right? These can be people who you fly in if need be, right? It's all contingent on how much that is going to cost, right? Getting Milton Glaser or Pentagram is not generally within the budget of our program, but getting some luminary speakers who the customer is really interested in. We're going to talk more about who those are. Recruiting executive judges from inside of the customer at a level that we want to be at on the executive side. So a VP of, for example, design community, VP of marketing, VP at Nike, we had the VP of apparel and of footwear come and judge, right? And that was very instrumental in building visibility for A, the talent of the competitors, B, the amazingness of Adobe software, and why the heck are we not yet done with our named user deployment project, and why isn't everybody using this monthly out the wazoo, and why haven't we bought Adobe stock yet? It seems like a no-brainer, right? We like to try and drive that awareness and consciousness up into the executive ranks, and hosting them as judges is an honor that doesn't take a lot of their time and creates a huge impact. So we also like to bring in Adobe VPs or directors wherever we can, so that they can build those relationships with the executives in those companies. So as you can see, we're touching a lot of different places inside of the account. And then this is myself and Sarah, who are the event managers, right? We drive the event from the BU side and co-own it, coordinate it, sponsor it, which means finance it, do the logistics, the follow-up, and everything like that. So we're super happy. And I was going to put a circle around Dave Helmley here, but he was one of the executive judges, and it just didn't, the line wasn't, but Dave is definitely included in the executive judges panel, so don't think it's not a personal snub. Anyway, what we have here, the four kind of top level event owners, the customer champion, the solutions consultant, the BU event manager, and the CSM. These are the people these are your core team when it comes to a creative jam. Okay, and so let's talk about timelines a little bit, right? While we're talking about the people, we might as well talk about how long this process tends to take. The minimum development time that we have noticed over pilot year was 6 to 9 weeks. The 6-week one that we developed with POP was because they were so nimble and agile and, quite frankly, small, right? Their agency was, I don't think, over 100 people. They were all co-located, and it was just lightning in a bottle with them. But that being said, that was the shortest one we did. And I would say the typical time frame, even though it sounds like a long time for an event, since it has so many components and we're reaching so broadly in the enterprise, we find that the time frame is actually more typical at 2 to 3 months. So just a little heads up, right? Even if we were to schedule, what is today, the 22nd? Even if we were to, schedule one right now today for your customer, we're really not looking at mid to late. We're looking at mid to late March at the earliest to realistically. And the reasons for that, again, I'll go over momentarily. But as you're aware, things move a little more slowly sometimes in the enterprise than we would like them to in the networking and venue department. So we have to be sensitive to that. And sometimes, dates have a way of wandering. So from the event production standpoint, myself, Sarah, and all the folks in the BU are going to be on fire to nail down those dates and to nail down those times. We need your partnership as the event co-owner to help us stay on top of the agenda timeline with the customer. And one of the ways that we do that is by setting a weekly meeting, which is required. We set that as the event managers. We set that weekly meeting. And we need your help to be on that call, to attend, to be present, to keep abreast of what's happening for the event with the account, and also to help hold our customers accountable for staying up as well. So that being said, I'm just going to bring up a very quick calendar of what it usually looks like. A lot of people have asked, what is it? How does it break down? How does the timing actually break down? So I've just included this very quick little calendar, right? In the pre-event, for the first couple of weeks to the first month, we usually have to introduce the whole concept to the champion. We commit the Adobe teams and the customer teams together. We set that weekly meeting cadence. We pick a date. These are the three things, the date, venue, and speakers, that after you have those things nailed down, everything can kind of slam into high gear. The agenda isn't actually as important as picking the date, venue, and speakers when it comes to knowing that you are locked in. That happens usually in the first couple of weeks, but it can actually sometimes take a month because the venue is not so cut and dry, getting that time placed on the internal calendar and figuring out where it's going to be. What place is going to be best inside of the organization, or does the organization even have a place, right? Do we need to go outside for this, and will we actually get people if we go outside? So something to think about. From weeks 3 to 5 or month 2, that's when recruitment has to happen for the actual competitors, right? I mean, you have to actually get them on board and understanding of what the contest is going to be, and get them to set the time aside, convince their management that it's worthwhile, and we can help with that. We finalize all the speakers and the judges. We publicize to the larger audience who might come to the speakers. We plan any hands-on activities if we're going to have them, and we finalize the agenda and the challenge categories. We'll talk about those categories soon. And then in kind of the last few weeks or the last month, right, we usually like to brief any of the competitors on what the challenge is going to be. We don't tell them what the theme is because we like to save the theme until they're actually competing. So there's an element of surprise and we level the playing field. But at this point, we usually tend to more deeply interface with the customer's IT, with their facilities, with their security to schedule things to make sure that this is going to work on their network inside of their firewall. Make sure that the equipment is all taken care of and settled. And if we need to provision trial licenses for those customers who might not be enrolled in named user deployment yet, if we need to put together some stock trial credits because they don't have Adobe stock credits, then that's usually when we do that, kind of towards the end. It's good to know about it ahead of time, but we tend to actually do the provisioning towards the end, right? Because it sometimes takes time. Now, on the days of the event, the day before, we like to do an on-site visit just to do some staging, decoration, checking the network, making sure that devices can connect and that everything is squared away with IT, as well as facilities, security, and any of those kind of logistical stakeholders. Then the night before, we like to take out everyone who is involved in the event's success. So folks from Adobe, the customer champion, our speakers, our executive judges, and any and all support staff, especially if there's a hands-on activity, we like to take them out and say thank you. And then the morning of, the Adobe personnel are expected to arrive on site to do the last-minute setup, staging, provisioning, testing, and getting ready to go. So then post-event, we like to do a very fast follow with a photo wrap-up with acknowledgments, which if you were part of the pilot program last year, you'll notice that speed is everything when it comes to those photo wrap-ups, right? But I like to get the photos the hours after and try and have the photo recap the next day, just to keep everything fresh in everyone's minds. And then we work on prize delivery to winners. If there's going to be a Behance page, we like to publish that within the next few weeks. Now the reference activity takes a little bit longer. That will consist of a blog post if the customer is amenable to it. And we're in talks right now with previous customers about doing these kinds of reference activities. It could be a video, it could be a blog, it could be something that we hand off the customer to the customer reference office or our strategic BDMs to do reference activities. And sometimes even for the Behance pages, we are given permission to do paid Facebook ads that will drive attention to their content. So that's fun. And then comes the most fun, which is the measuring. Did they renew their ETLA? Did their ACV, TCV, and ARR grow? Or did they put in new products and services when they renewed? Did they actually follow up and deploy by a named user? Has their monthly active usage increased, right? That's the measuring stuff that everybody is responsible for. Luckily, in our pilot program, we've had some good needle movers with Mattel adding over 800 named users in within a 4 to 5 month time frame after the Creative Jam, and Nike within 3 months of the Creative Jam added over 1,500 named users to the program. Now, I'm not going to take all the credit. I don't think the Creative Jam is the only thing that contributed to that move with our customers, but I think if you go back and ask some of the customers, it definitely turned on some of the light bulbs that were not turned on. Now, you'll notice that these photos are really beautiful, and we don't necessarily have as gorgeous of a facility at some customers that we do at others. So just to give you a bare bones description of the primary spaces that we're looking for when we try and execute a Creative Jam, the first space would be the Jam space, where 5 to 10 teams of 2 or 3 members can comfortably compete in a themed design challenge for up to 3 hours, right? The challenge does not have to be 3 hours, but we like it to be the kind of space where if we do go the full length of a 3-hour challenge, that they will have enough space and access to facilities and power and all of those things. And this is the typical setup for the number of teams and number of members per team. A networking creativity space is great if you're going to have food and beverage, hands-on activities, or even Behance portfolio reviews, which is something we're going to be doing for EDU for students. And so that actually you can't really do portfolio reviews or hands-on activities without that kind of ancillary secondary space. It can be connected to the jam space, it can be next to it or part of it, but you do need some kind of separate space where people are not crunching into each other. And then everything can be joined together all in one. I've seen it done all in one, and I've seen it broken out. But the presentation space is important. It doesn't have to look like an auditorium. It can be in the round. It can be, kind of a little less formal, but it should be set up for an audience of at least 100 people if possible, right? That's the number of people we're driving towards to get butts in the seats to look at the Luminary speaker talks. 3 to 4 speakers is typical, and we'll have 3 to 6 expert judges again there. So this is the kind of space that we're looking for when you go talk to your customers about the possibility of a creative jam. Just a sample event agenda, you'll notice that this is a morning to afternoon, getting everybody out by 5 o'clock. So you'll notice that it actually, goes for most of the afternoon. If everybody sets up at 11 o'clock and they start their boot camp at 11:30, they go through lunch, they start the tournament, the audience arrives for happy hour around 3, speakers begin at 3:30, they wrap up at 4:30, the judging of the tournament begins at 4:30 and 4:45. I mean, it's a commitment of at least half a day, right? It's a little more intensive than your average 90-minute to 3-hour Adobe day, put up, what do they call it? Show up and throw up and be done, right? It's a little more intensive than that. And of course, we have done half-day creative jams, right? The WPP one in Chicago, we were able to bring that agenda into 3 hours in a half day, but it didn't have all of the components of the creative jam, right? There was no hands-on, and the boot camp was shortened. It was not a 90-minute boot camp. And also the tournament was shortened to, I believe, 90 minutes. So everything can be condensed. We're not saying that this is a sample event agenda. Some customers really want to give that 3-hour block because they want them to have that embodied knowledge and they have a deeper project in mind. So that being said, it also depends on how many speakers they want to have and how much time they have. One of the great parts about working at Adobe, I'll say, is that these design leaders, A, know who we are, B, love the idea of coming and speaking for us, and C, are usually in every major city. We've got great luminaries. So this is just an example of some of the community speakers that we had over the course of FY17. And it's exciting, right? It's one of the fun parts of working with the customers to figure out, well, what is the culture inside of your organization, right? If we're going to be talking to Target or L Brands or IBM or any of those other customers that I spoke with at Max, and really kind of getting behind what would be interesting from a corporate culture perspective. What is going to move the needle to turn your employees on to creativity as a corporate cultural value, right? And it can be really fun, interesting, not only in coming up with who they would like, right? Kind of the art of the possible, but then when we reach out and those speakers are actually excited to come speak at this customer and sometimes even waiving their speaker fee, right? Because they're so excited. It can be a lot of fun and really illuminating. Some of these people are just amazing speakers with great messages that everybody comes away very inspired by. So the components that we can customize, as I was mentioning, the categories, this is probably the thing that most of our customers, and forgive me while I take a sip of sparkling fizzy bubbles, but the categories, this is one of the things that our customers like to customize the most because they want to make sure that any activity that we're doing is not obviously just acting in Adobe's best interest, but in their end user's best interest. They want this to be a hands-on learning with impact that the users come away remembering things. And so even though I put up these categories here, 2D, 3D compositing, UI, UX, and web design, social campaigns, motion design, graphic design, the category really does kind of depend on what the customer wants, right? At Nike, their category was product design. Of course, they settled on a 2D, 3D composite to show the product design using Adobe Dimension, but that was their own category. They didn't like our categories and wanted to forge new. These are recommendations, suggestions that are all customizable. Luckily, we had the great fortune of being able to procure a roaming lab of 9 fully provisioned MacBook Pros and 9 fully provisioned Apple iPad Pros with pencils. So we have a full lab of 9 machines, basically 9 complete workstations that can showcase the power of the Creative Cloud on OS X platform. But we don't have to bring them if the customer already has named user deployment, right? We can have a complete BYOD experience, or we can have a hybrid experience. It's really kind of up to the customer. But we like to make sure that they know that that's something that we can offer. And so far, since we got that lab, every customer has taken advantage of it, right? They like having equipment that they know is working to spec. But we might find as named user deployment grows over the course of the year that we might need it less. We'll see. Some of the criteria for the challenges will include things like stock images, typekit fonts, color, shapes, materials from Adobe Capture or drawings from Adobe Draw or Adobe Sketch, 3D composites with Dimension, shareable UX or user interface prototypes with Adobe XD. Right? Again, these are suggestions based on our products, what we actually have in our bag. But again, those criteria are fluid when it comes to what the customer thinks is going to make the most sense for their population. The theme also, right? They're going to determine the theme with assistance from us. They're going to source the speakers with assistance from us. Judges also with us. Now, this is interesting. Time of day. Most commercial enterprises that we worked with wanted to get this done by 5 o'clock so people could go home. In EDU, people want to do it, right? Students are night owls, and so doing it in the afternoon, evening, after classes is going to make more sense. But again, we don't want to be monolithic about the time of day. We want to determine that with the customer. If for an EDU customer, for example, they want to do it in the morning and be done by the afternoon, then great. That's totally fine with us. Prizes. So this is where, for the public sector folks on the phone, it gets a little tricky since we're not necessarily allowed to give gifts to folks in the public sector, and there might be certain instances of commercial or EDU customers where this is the case as well, where we're not allowed to give out the full Creative Cloud subscription to the winners because it's over $600 retail value. We can give out trophies. Those are less than the typical retail value and are kind of seen as your average contest fare. But prizes are negotiable as well. Usually the typical prize is one of those fabulous trophies and a 1-year Creative Cloud subscription per winning team member. But we will do whatever is allowed or best for that enterprise. And also, vis-a-vis, public sector and some other companies who might not want to be seen as fully endorsing a vendor, such as, one of their vendors or partners like Adobe, we don't make it a forcing function that the customer must do PR and co-marketing opportunities with us, and they must put everything up on Behance and on a blog and a microsite and do all these customer references. We like to strongly encourage them to think about doing so, but we do understand that for some customers it's much more difficult, time-consuming, and arduous. So we like to drive that, and it's a case-by-case thing. But these are the typical customizable components. Now let's talk about the KPIs before we get to our Q&A. So my KPI for the year is to run 35 to 40 of these. Now, rest assured, I'm not doing these all by myself, right? We are actually bringing on a number of contractors to help us with this. And of course, we have our team, your team, and everybody. but across North American commercial, EDU, and public sector, our KPI is to do 35 to 40 of these in this year, right? Now, the reach of that is 300,000 seats, ballparking it, and an average just around $100 million ARR worth of influence. This is what we're looking for. We're looking for monthly active use growth in these accounts overall, and how that's going to be measured is going to evolve over time as our metrics and measuring our measuring methodologies continue to become more mature. But we're also looking to get at least 15, if not 25 customer references, be they Behance pages, blogs, or actual videos and customer reference materials from the CRO, right? So just to give you guys an idea of how these KPIs roll out quarter over quarter. So in Q1, the only jams that we're actually executing on are holdovers from the previous year and from the previous team who was addressing the EDU vertical. So those are the only ones we're executing in Q1 because we're doing so much program setup in Q2, right? We're onboarding some new event managers, right? The TBHs that I was talking about before. Sarah and I are working on completing our vendor and giveaway workflow so that we can get all of those wonderful prizes and swag to the places a lot more at a scalable level. And we have to kind of finish out our traveling lab device account and stock trial provisioning so that we can be ready to hit the ground running in Q2. What we're also developing for the end of Q1, myself and a bunch of partners are working on version 1 of a Creative Enterprise Workshop event planning kit. Now, what CEWEPK, SWEEPIC, that's my acronym for that, which is going to be for teams and customers who either don't qualify for a Creative Jam or are just not part of the selection process this year. And it's not going to be a Creative Jam in a box per se, because we have to be very careful about how we use the branding of this event, when it comes to running our own events. But it's going to be an enterprise workshop event planning kit that will distill a lot of the values in the Creative Jam and put it all together in a resource kit, for you. So we're rolling that out at the end of Q1, which we're very excited about. And so keep your eyes peeled for that. And also we are scheduling the Q2 to Q3 jams. The first 10 to 15 we want to have scheduled by the end of Q1. So as you can see, that's a lot to do this quarter without also running a whole bunch of jams, which is why we're not actually running that many this quarter. But SPAM Q2, we're in execution mode, 10 to 15 of them going, and schedule the rest of them, another 20 to 25, so that by Q3, we're running another 10 to 15, and we're already going to have to start canvassing for FY19 starting in Q3. And we're also going to start prepping, a little typo there. We're going to start prepping for Adobe Max and Sales Kickoff and what our activities are going to be there. So since Max and Sales Kickoff are in Q4, we have to ratchet down our jam execution just slightly to do 8 to 10 of them. And at Adobe Max, we're going to recap and have an activity with our jam customers that is TBD, and also do outreach and setup for our FY19 candidates, which will hopefully be selected by the time Max comes around in October. And then at Sales Kickoff, we hope to deliver a Creative Jam recap and also a workshop, again, shipping version 2 of the Creative Experience, of the Creative Enterprise Workshop Event Planning Kit for the DME CSM breakout, which hopefully this year I will get invited to. All right, so we're here at the nomination form and the timeline for that. All right, this is the exciting part, so get your screen caps ready, right? So the nomination form and timeline, your criteria for a jam candidate, right? They should probably be an ETLA customer already with a renewal window within or after Q3, right? That's going to give you time if we're scheduling it in Q2 for them to do the necessary reporting so that, Q3 is when if they're going to renew. They should probably have a KPI to implement named user deployment or encourage monthly active usage. They should not still be in the phase of saying, what is this named user deployment business? If they have no idea and they're not aware, they're not a good candidate for this. And if they have no intention of rolling out named user deployment over the next year, then they're probably also not such a great candidate. We can try, but it's better if they already have their own KPI to implement it and they're on the road. They're already somewhat moving in that direction, or they know that they should. We're looking for 20 potential competitors. So is the enterprise large enough so that they could have 15 or 20 folks come offline for 3 hours to do this in a day, if we're billing it as a training boot camp and activity that's going to leave them with real marketable skills and usable in their enterprise, as well as 100 potential attendees for the audience. We really need you to have an Adobe champion identified. If you don't have somebody who you're working with who can help you network inside of the organization, and you don't feel like you can get to a person like that, then that customer is going to have a really difficult time doing a concentrated activity like this. The last part, and I know this is it's easier for folks in the EDU space, is a venue with people who are together, right? There are a lot of enterprises that are spread out all over the place, and they have 80 offices around the country, for example, or around the world, and getting them all together to do something like this, they might have millions of licenses, but getting them all together is going to be hard, okay? So today is Monday the 22nd, and the nomination form is going live right as we wrap up this call. You guys have got a week, and if I were Chris Kohler, I would say you have less than a week. The earlier the submissions you put in, the more preferred treatment the selection committee is going to give it. And it's not just me, by the way, like sitting here in my little man cave selecting people in a little bubble, right? But we're putting this through the ringer with the BDM team, with the BU product marketing and product management team, as well as leaders in the field. So don't think that somehow it's just me by myself choosing people because I feel like it. We do have a cross-functional team that will be looking at the submissions to make sure they make sense, and that's going to be happening. It could happen today if you submit today, but if we hit that KPI of all the nominations in by a week, then the week of the 5th is when we're going to review those nominations, announce the selected customers the following week, and we're going to schedule and confirm jams throughout the month of February, so that by the end of Q1, again, the first 15 jams are scheduled for Q2. This could accelerate depending on your speed of submitting. So I hope you guys want to see the nomination form. I'm going to show it to you right now, and let me go over to Chrome. All right, so this is the lovely form. You don't have to screenshot the URL because I'm about to give you a much nicer bit.ly. But this form basically just shows you everything that I said, right? What is the offering? What's required? This is for you, by the way. This is not for you to pass around to like your customer, for example. Customers don't get this form. We don't really want them to see how the sausage gets made here. But it does have a number of resources and examples. For example, it has this one sheet. What? Come on. No, that is what I want. What the heck, man? All right, let's see here. So this is a one-sheet enterprise event guide, which gives people kind of an idea. It's just a one-sheeter that can show your customer what it is. A facilities spec sheet. What is happening with Chrome? Anyway, I don't care. Right, so this is like if they are curious about how the what kind of AV that we're going to need, what kind of food and beverage and setup and stuff like that. So we've got that. We've got an example breakdown, which is exactly like the deck that I attached, or that Lee attached to this meeting invitation, right, which just very quickly gives a pitch, right, for Creative Jams and shows the sample agenda that I went through. We also have an example invitation, and that example invitation, this is for the, I believe, the Nike Creative Jam, right, which shows the speakers and how we lay it out, how we talk about the judges, the jammers, etc., right? This is an example for you to look at, right? That's not necessarily to share with customers. Also an example recap, which is the Nike event recap, as well as a link to the Adobe Creative Jams home where people can learn more. All right. So here are the form fields. There's also a video that just shows you a little bit more. So here's what you have to fill out: the customer candidate name, the vertical, the region, right? And that region is not so hard. It's east, central, or west, so don't go crazy. What is their ETLA size, their ARR, seat count, renewal time frame? What is their deployment and services scenario? What is their current usage and knowledge? Do you have that champion? What is their title and position? Do they have at least that number of users and practitioners? Does the facility have, a space? Have you ever done a customer success or customer reference with them? Do you think they might be open to it? Who are you? Who's your SE? Other folks on the account team? And then here's where you would put in special circumstances that you want us to consider that are outside of the form. So, this is your short answer way to get through to the, selection committee. So that is the form. Are you guys ready for the URL? Here it is: bit.ly/CJE-CSM-nominations-2018. Go get it. Go do it. In fact, I will get out of Connect, copy it, put it over in Senior Chat Pod over here. Go, click it, make the thing, do it happen. Make it do it happen. And now, so I'm really sorry that took so long to get through, but I am going to take a look at the Q&A now.